Sharpening is as important to your woodworking as being able to tune a guitar is to playing a guitar. You could be doing everything else perfect with your hands, with your performance, but if you're not able to understand if your instrument is in tune and to fix it, you're not going to be able to perform to your level. Same thing applies with woodworking. You could be doing everything else exactly right, but if your tools aren't sharp, you're not getting the most out of your tools. Now, sharpening is one of those things. And I'm like everybody else, I have a method that works for me. There's lots of methods out there, and I'm also one of those guys that may be a bit obsessive and tried every single one of them. I'm not saying that my method is best. I'm saying that my method works really, really well for me, and it is the result of trying everything else. That's one of the things I want to accomplish on this channel, is to kind of bring you through some of the things that if I had it to do over again, I'd do different. So we're going to jump right in and start talking about what is sharp and how to get to it. This is an iron from a Stanley No. 8 jointer. It's a wide blade. We're going to focus on getting this thing completely sharp. By the way, if you see anything useful at all, anything you like on this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. I want to take you through the entire process of getting an iron really and truly sharp. At this point, I should probably mention what I'm doing is not everyday sharpening. That's honing. That's what I'm trying to get at here. There's a difference between sharpening and honing. This is an iron that needs a lot of attention. We want to focus on a couple of areas first. One is if you've got problems with plane irons that you have trouble setting with the lateral adjustment, they always feel like they're taking a heavier cut on one side than the other, it's not giving you those full width shavings, check to see if it's square across the edge. In this case, it's not. It's a bit higher over on this side. This is something that I don't see covered very often, but it is super important. Let's go ahead and talk about the abrasives that I use. I do like the diamond plate abrasives. The main reason that I like these is because they stay flat. I don't have to maintain these things. That being said, I use diamond plates. Now, I have all the grits of the diamond plates. For what I'm about to do, I'm going to use the extra coarse. I actually use an auto glass cleaner to lubricate the stone. This portion is crucial. Getting this edge square is where you need to start. You can place this straight down onto a very coarse stone. Here's a tip. If you put it like this and drag it straight back, it's just going to make an awful noise. What I like to do is kind of angle it, and I'm going to take this edge completely down to flat. At this point, I've blunted this edge entirely, and I'm going to take a look and see where I am in terms of square. So I'm high over on this edge here. So I'm just going to focus on this side for a moment. Now it's moved a bit, so I need to focus more this way. And I'm just hanging this edge off so I don't abrade it. It's very close. Now I have this edge perfectly square. There's no light passing between the square and the edge. We've abraded this edge, we've taken it down to square, but this will eventually become our edge. What we have across the edge right now are some extremely coarse scratches. I want to remove these because, like I said, this will be our edge. We want to put as much polish on this as you like. So I'm going to move up in grit now to a fine diamond stone. I know that seems like a big jump from extra coarse to fine, but these go fine, extra fine, extra, extra fine. So this is the next grit up that I have, and it works fine. So I'm just going to polish out the edge now. And I'm inspecting the edge all along to see if I notice any sort of defects. I'm going to continually check for square. I don't want to undo what I've done. I'm going to move up in grit now. This is the extra fine And finally, the extra fine. So now what I've done is I've blunted this edge entirely, but I've also polished this because we're going to remove this bevel and we're going to flatten this back so that this edge, we're going to deplete the steel on either side of this until we're left with a 0-degree radius. And that edge is going to be polished. Here's an idea of the edge that we're after. You can see that I've flattened that off and polished it up to a pretty high level of polish. Everything we're doing now makes it easier for the process that I use so that we can get to sharp really quick. The next thing we want to focus on is this back of the blade. That's the side that's opposite of the bevel. Now, don't neglect this. If this isn't flat, you are not going to get a 0 radius. You've probably seen the ruler trick. That's what I use. It's an excellent trick. What you do, and I'm sure you've seen this elsewhere, but this is the method that I use. You lay a thin ruler across the far side of your stone. I'm back on the fine stone. Lay the plane iron down. You want to keep the edge close to this side of the stone. Even pressure, and we're going to work until, and this will stick eventually. There we go. I'm going to work across until we've got a shiny strip across the entire edge. This step is critical. It's crucial. This is another thing that if you're struggling to get the type of performance from your planes that you expect, the first thing to check is if your iron is square, and the second is your back flat? You can definitely see the scratch pattern here is coming up on this corner, and nothing's happening over here. So we want to get that coarse scratch pattern all the way across this back. It's also why I like to have this extra coarse diamond stone. Just get you to the point quicker. And you can imagine if we were having to polish the whole back of this thing, you see how long it's taking just to move these scratch patterns across that way with the ruler trick. So it's creeping up. Now we're to about here. Still got a little bit to go. So what's happening, you can see this sort of triangular shape that we're getting on the scratch pattern here. So what's happening is, because the reason it's not just scooting across the edge there is that we've got to remove all of this section before that section is really even going to come in contact with the stone. And that's the same concept of what's going on in the wood. This back of the plane iron would not give you a 0-degree radius because this corner over here would have a hump on the back, and that will keep you from having a plane that functions the way that you expect it to. I'll also mention again that this is a very old plane. I don't know how old the plane iron is, but that is a Type 1 Stanley No. 8 jointer. Very old. I highly doubt the iron is from the same era, but you never know. You wouldn't have to do this much, hopefully, with a new plane iron. Almost there. Yeah. So we're about to where my thumbnail is here. Coming across. Should probably, at this point, flip that stone around. Work on the other edge a little bit. Boy, that's in there. Tight-fitting dado. Ah, forget it. Now, this is a pretty extreme case, I will say. Of course, for the sharpening video that I do, I get the worst plane iron ever, but don't worry that this scratch pattern is thick down here and thin over here. All you need is all the way across the edge. As soon as this scratch pattern gets to the other edge over here on this corner all the way to the end, I'm done. Do not worry about this. The reason this is happening is because essentially the plane iron is thicker on this side than it is on this side. We had to remove the steel all the way across there to get to the edge on that side. We're pretty much there. There's some weird little indentions right here that I'm just want off. So I'm just going to do a little bit more on this extra coarse. Our scratch pattern now traverses the entire back of this iron. I'm going to go ahead and go up in the grits to polish this back out. Moving from extra coarse to fine. I'm sure there's plenty of activity in the comments section regarding that, but nobody's watching this, so let's just keep going. This works, by the way. You can definitely go from extra coarse to fine on diamond stones. You could buy every grit of diamond stone if you want to, but after a while you realize you just need to get something sharp. I hope now, in contrast to some of the other sharpening videos, you see that this is not the meditative process that you see with the slick little water stones. Sharpening is not the meditative process that it's made out to be. I'm going to be honest with you, sharpening is a pain in the ass, okay? So the reason I go through all this is to get this to a point to where I can get things sharp really quickly. And we'll go over that in the next video. In fact, I'm going to have to make this 2 videos. This first one is just going to be commissioning, or sharpening versus honing. So what we're doing right now is definitely sharpening, not honing. We're reshaping this iron. We're preparing it to be sharp. Shaping. Once we get to the honing part of it, yeah, maybe then we can talk a little bit about how much you enjoy it. But honestly, after a while, when you're actually, working in your shop and you're building furniture, you just want to get back to sharp as quick as you can. And that's why I really like the method that I'll show you in the next video. So we've polished out the scratches from the extra coarse on the fine stone. How about that? Jumping over to the extra fine stick. Now the beauty of this is that, we're just polishing what we did on that extra coarse stone. We don't have to, remove all that metal. So we're just polishing what we've already done. And I will say this, big thank you to people who came up with this ruler trick, because if we had to flatten the back of this thing without that ruler, you can imagine we'd be flattening this entire whole section back here. This is what we were able to achieve with the ruler trick. Now that we have the back flattened and polished, I'm going to move over to the primary bevel. Now we've removed this edge and we've polished this out. This thickness, this line across here, what we're going to turn our attention to now, we're going to remove the steel from this end to deplete this line slowly. For that, I do use a slow speed grinder. I could do it on this coarse stone, but this video would be exceptionally long. The next part of my method for when I have to reshape a bevel, do any sort of recommissioning or repair on a plane iron, is I use a Rikon 8-inch low speed grinder. A low speed grinder will turn the wheel slower, but it does not mean it will not cook your tools. The most important thing I have over here is this bucket of water. As you remove metal, it heats it up. If you heat it up too much, you will remove the temper, and you'll be able to tell when you do that because the steel will turn blue and burn. Once you've done that, you've got to remove everything behind where you burned it and start over entirely. Now, the other thing, I do have safety glasses here, and just a side note, these have my prescription in it, given to me by my wife. So let's get started. Please pay attention to how often I put this in the water. What I'm trying to work to do is remove steel from the bevel at 25 degree roughly 25 degrees, and I'm trying to reduce this line of light to the point where it's almost gone. Constantly checking the edge to feel for warmth, not heat. Doesn't need to get hot, only needs to get warm. I'm starting to feel it get warm. Checking my edge to see what I've done. Cool it off in the water. That line is getting really thin at this point. What that means is two things. I'm getting close to the edge, the 0 degree radius that we're going to achieve at the end. The other thing is this steel is a much thinner on the edge here, which means it's going to heat up a lot faster, which means I have to keep it in the water more often. I'm also looking across the edge to see that it's reducing in thickness uniformly. If that line is thicker on one end than it is on the other, I'll focus on that end to bring it down to the same thickness uniformly. But in this case, it's pretty much the same all the way across. I guess I should take the time to mention that I am using a Veritas grinding jig. Sorry, I don't know the exact name of it. It has a little slot. There's a T-slot on this that fits in here. Make sure that you stay square to the wheel. I like it. It doesn't always get the best of attention. Some people like it, some people don't. It works for me. One thing is that I do have it locked down where it lives there, and this is the angle that works for me, and it took me a while to dial it in, but now that it's there and it's locked in, it's fine. Again, if I feel heat in my fingers, I guess I should say, you know, safety is your problem, your concern. But I keep my fingers up close to the edge. That way I can feel the heat as it builds up before it gets hot. So we're very, very close to the edge. I'll probably only take a couple of light passes. That's got a little more actually. Hopefully you see that this is, patience is important. This isn't a fast process, even though the grinder is making it a lot easier than doing it on the stones. So at this point, it's thicker over on this edge than it is on this edge. So I'm going to focus more on this side than I do on that side. And the whole point of that is you want to arrive at this edge at the same time. You don't want a thicker edge over here. So up on this corner here, really hard to show on camera, but on the corner here, it's not reflecting any more light, right on the very edge. Over here, it's still got a good bit of thickness. So I don't need to work on this edge at all anymore. Just over here on this corner over to about there. So now it's actually almost to the edge in the middle, and we need to focus right over here on this corner. Still reflecting some light. And when you're focused on a small area like that, really light, really short passes. That's where you'll blue an edge, is when you're so close to the end. All right, so at this point, I've got this thing ready to hone. Everything we've done up until this point, we can consider sharpening. Let's call it sharpening versus honing. Honing is what we do when we're maintaining an edge. This is now ready to hone. So that's the end of this video. If you saw anything that you liked, hopefully this was a different approach to sharpening in terms of everyday use. You know, picking up an old Stanley, working it out to get it up to the way you want it to work, flattening out that edge, making sure that it's square, focusing on this back, using the slow speed grinder to set that primary bevel, reducing the line of light on the edge evenly till you get to the point where we're ready to hone. So we'll go on to the next video, sharpening part 2. If you see anything you like, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for hanging out in the shop.